Welcome back to another episode of the Triple J Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen, and we're back with another episode and a returning guest, assistant coach over at the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo men's basketball program, Jesse Pruitt, returning again. Last time Jesse was with us, he was part of the Stanford men's basketball program, and he has since moved on to the greener pastures, so they say. Jesse left us with some great clips, many of which have kind of captured the social media viral sensations and definitely presented some stories around some legendary names during his time. Jesse and I went to UC Davis together. He began his career at Cal Poly Pomona, spent quite a few years at Santa Clara before his time at Stanford. It is fantastic to bring Jesse back. I'm looking forward to the conversation. If you haven't had a chance to get to know Jesse, hope you'll enjoy the episode. Lots of great insights. And without further ado, another episode coming at you. Triple J Sports Podcast, Jesse Pruitt, at you now. Welcome back to the Triple J Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Rasmussen, and we are back with another episode. Returning today, a repeat guest, taking time out of his busy schedule mid-season, Coach Jesse Pruitt. Welcome back to the show, Jesse.
Phil, it's great to see you, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you sliding away from the gym and finding a quiet spot at home to chat for a little bit. How's everything been going first season through here over at Cal Poly SLO?
Yeah, so season one was successful. You know, Cal Poly had been struggling a little bit, and they brought in a great coach in Mike DeGeorge, who came from Colorado Mesa, and he's kind of built a reputation of turning programs around, and he did exactly that in our first year. We ended up finishing 7th in the regular season and then made it to the semifinals of the conference tournament, knocking off both UC Davis and UC Riverside on our way to the conference semifinals. So it was a great run. We played.
Hurts my heart a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of little rivalries there in the conference, but we play a fun brand of basketball, man. We get up and down the floor. We're top 5 in the country last year in pace, along with 3-pointers made. We like to get the ball out of the net and go, and we play positionless. So it doesn't matter if you're 6'9" or 5'9". We're teaching you how to use a ball screen, how to set a ball screen, how to make plays in the paint. And we had 100% retention from last year's team. Yes, we graduated 7 guys, but for the guys that could come back, we were one of 5 programs in the country that was able to retain every single player, which says a lot just about, our head coach, Mike DeGeorge, and just the system that we're implementing.
That's beyond impressive when you think about what the chatter is and the reality of the transfer portal and the NIL. What, it sounds like you touched on a few things, but is there anything in particular you think that really is why that's the case, that you guys kind of hang your hat on, or that you point to and say, we're doing a really good job of this, and this is helping us build and maintain continuity?
Yeah, I think it comes down to trust and transparency. I think 5 or 6 years ago, coaches would really walk on eggshells and not want to touch the idea of transferring or the transfer portal. We get it all out there on the open, and we talk about it, and we allow our guys to talk about it. And the guys that could have transferred really made education on really sound decisions. They were very organized and say, hey, if I'm going to go in the portal, I'm going to look at these 4 things as I look at school B. And if these things aren't met, then I know what Cal Poly is. I know what this program is. I know how I'm going to develop here. And those are just ongoing conversations that we're having throughout the year. So no one's caught blindsided, late in the season or, at the end of the season. So the trust and transparency piece is number 1. And 2, I think it's just our style of play. I think guys know that because it's positionless, because everybody's going to have the opportunity to score, to handle the ball, a lot of teams aren't playing this way. You see it in the NBA with the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City, but a lot of college teams are really stuck in traditional
old school offense.
old school offense. And we're not that way. And I think our players really understand that they can really develop here because they're doing a little bit of everything.
That's definitely seems like one of those benefits that's huge. You touched on something that I think is interesting too, right? How do you navigate when you're having the conversation with a kid who's considering the transfer portal, right? Like they potentially have that opportunity to maybe go make some more NIL money or maybe chase a dream to play at that next level in their mind, right? Like one of the power conferences that was maybe something they grew up aspiring to do. For a lot of programs, once a kid puts themselves into the portal, it essentially means you're out at the program you're at. So you're kind of taking a risk. You can't really return to the one you're at. And I've seen kids burn bridges with coaches, heard those stories, heard, those threats. Like, how are you guys handling it, both in terms of the way the kid enters the portal, understanding the backdrop, and then timing wise, at a certain point, you guys have to make a decision on who you go pursue if that kid's not going to be there. So how do you navigate those conversations specifically?
Yeah, I think, for myself, and I think most coaches, you got to really think, okay, why did I get into this business? Why did I become a coach? And number one, it's for development, to help these young people develop. And if you do a good job of developing these kids, they're going to have opportunities. And we understand where we're at in the Big West Conference, that we're not going to be able to pay these guys the same way maybe the Big Ten Conference or the ACC Conference will. So if our players develop like we told them they would in the recruiting process, and they have the opportunity to go make life-changing money, they got to go. They got to go, and we encourage
Without question.
because as coaches, if we can make life-changing money, we're going. So if they can make life-changing money, they got to go. And I think when the kids hear that on the front end, they're great about it. And what we think, and it has happened, if they come to Cal Poly and they develop and they have a chance to go to a higher conference and get a major payday, that's only going to help us with the next kid. And it has helped us. And now we've got this reputation of, all right, well, maybe you're not playing at the Power Five. You come play with us. Now numbers are jumping off the roof. We have a player right now who's top 10 in the country in scoring. He came to us from Dayton, where he averaged 1 point a game. He's currently averaging 24 points a game. And he's going to have an opportunity to really make a legacy here at Cal Poly, or at some point, go make some life-changing money somewhere else, and then hopefully develop and get, to the NBA, which is the real dream.
What was that offense when we were playing, man? I want to go score 24, 25 a game in college right now.
No doubt, man. And a guy like you would have thrived in this offense because we love high volume shooters.
Let me put the three up, baby. Let's go.
We've had two players take 10 or more threes in a game. So we're letting it fly.
That's it, man. The hotter you can't get hot until you shoot enough.
That's right.
One of my favorite quotes, teammate Damon Jackson, I played with at Fresno State, used to always tell me he'd be miss 5, 6, 7 in a row, and I'd be like, "Yo, dude, maybe chill out." And he's like, "No, it means I'm about to get hot. Like, I need to shoot 8 more."
That's right.
And being in an offense that lets you play for your mind, I think, is huge for kids. Talk about it all the time here. Confidence. Taking that throughout my business career as a leader, you have to put confidence into people for them to really achieve. People can have internal confidence, but you can chip away at it as a leader. You can take it from them, or you can create self-doubt and have them get in their own way of playing freely. In the offense that you're describing and kind of the way you guys coach, do you think one of the things that really works well is, look, you can go and play freely. Within the realm of our offense, you're a basketball player, and do the right things and practice the right skill sets, and then your instincts take over, which really is where confidence can kind of soar from. Is that definitely one of the reasons you guys are finding success?
Yeah, we want to teach these guys to be basketball players rather than teaching plays. We have a very, very, very small playbook. These guys are learning space and pace is what they're learning, and just learning those keys. And I think that really gives the guys, the confidence. And just again, it comes back down to your boss and your head coach and his demeanor. And he's not a guy that berates players or belittles players. He really tries to empower them because we have so many possessions in a game. We're never out of a game. If in our games this year, it's kind of crazy. We've been up 10, we've been down 10. It's almost like the NBA with the short shot clock. NBA game, it doesn't matter if you're up 15 in the fourth quarter. That thing's going to come down to the last couple possessions. And that's kind of how we play. Defensively, I'd like us to get a few more stops, so we're not in those situations. But
you have to say that as a coach. That's a must.
But and so if guys aren't playing with confidence, we're not going to be able to get the ball out of the net and move on to the next play because it happens so fast. So we practice it, we preach it every day, and it's just something that you really have to ingrain into your culture.
What is it like recruiting high school kids and junior college kids, transfers? Like, how is that different today? Like, what is that conversation like? Start with the high school kid because, you hear a lot, like just watched Coach Cal's rant, justifiably so, about, going and recruiting high school kids versus, 26-year-old pros. How do you guys approach those high school recruiting conversations? Because the truth is, like, there's a tremendous amount of talented high school kids, but they're not going to be developed like a 22 or 23-year-old. There's no way around it.
Well, first, I'll say this. I think the evaluations of high school kids are actually stronger than they've ever been, mainly because of technology, and every one of their games are streamed now. So, it used to be the rule where you have 7 live evaluations a year. You can go watch them practice. You can go to a tournament. You can watch games, but you got 7 a year. Now you can watch every single game. So a couple things have happened. One, we're not crisscrossing the country, logging all these miles, sitting and watching high school players, because the reality is you might sign 1 or 2 in the fall. You might sign 1 or 2 in the spring, if at any, because your rosters are changing so much. And like you mentioned, the transfer portal is happening, and you got to get old and stay old. And the only way to do that is to get transfers. So it is getting a lot more challenging for high school players. And I think the positive is it's really going to open the eyes to high school kids, the Division II level, the Division III level, the NAIA, which is very, very high level basketball. And because it's so visible, those kids that go to D2 and D3 will have a chance to go D1. There's so many kids who start their careers at that level and have moved their way up. So I do think it's a little bit, it's making it harder for the unsigned high school senior to be able to, land something in the spring. But I do think the high school seniors got to open their eyes to what else is out there and not just pigeonhole themselves just to Division I. They got to see the whole picture and see that the Division II experience can be amazing. D3, NAIA, junior college can all be amazing experiences. And the basketball journey is no longer this linear journey like it was maybe when you and I were in school, where you come in one school and you kind of just there for 4 or 5 years. There's a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs. And now guys are going pro and coming back to college. So there's a lot of
wild.
And you've got to, I think, just continue to put that development piece at the forefront and just put your head down and work. And I think there will be opportunities, but it's not going to be the traditional route necessarily like it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
I look at that all the time, and people that I have conversations with will say, would your career have been different? And I'm like, I know it would have been different simply because options that you now have affect the decisions that you make, right? And, I look at Joe Harden and I both. I went to Fresno State. He went to Notre Dame. We both ended up transferring into UC Davis after our initial year or two at those programs. And for me, it was to not, it was a perfect situation to go play for Coach Fogel, not sit a year in the Division II, but then he's gone less than 2 weeks later. Coach Stewart comes in. That was not who recruited me. And now I was in that same environment of like, this guy doesn't want me really here. I'm kind of more of a cast off in his mind. I didn't have any options. I didn't have any choices at that point. I had made my bed, so to speak, with the way the rules were. And there's a lot of fortitude and a lot of strength in life that it came. Had an amazing experience with all of you guys, all the guys that I played with, and found a way to create success in adverse situations and built relationships. But when people ask me, like, would you have stayed if the rules were the way they were? I'm like, no, I wouldn't have, because I would have had that option and I would have gone somewhere I was wanted and that I knew I would be playing. Because why would you voluntarily choose something? I look at that, and when people ask me, I go, I'm grateful that I didn't, because it's really helped me a tremendous amount in life in terms of just toughness and getting through things. What worries me about kids today is that if you never have to fight through the adversity of what it takes to get on the court, and you're always able to just go to the place that's going to give you what you're looking for or leave, you're not really getting tested in the same way. And you see that with the kids that go to 3, 4, 5 programs. And I wonder, like, is it having that effect where kids aren't learning toughness? You guys are doing well continuity, but do you hear it throughout the collegiate ranks about, kids kind of developing a sense of entitlement that understandably is coming from this environment that is teaching them that?
It's a great point. It's a great question. I don't think we know yet. I think this open transfer era that we're in, the NIL era that we're in, I think it's still very new, and I haven't heard about graduation rates dipping, even though I know that's a big fear and people are talking about, well, no one's graduating. We don't know that. We haven't seen the rates in terms of our guys resilient. Are they doing well in the job interviews? Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I do think it's a concern and a fear, and I think the comeback would be, maybe I'm not as resilient as the generation before me, but guess what? I got $500,000 in my bank account, and I've got
I'm ready to be in business.
and I've got a starting point that you guys grinded for 10 years to get to, and I'm already here. So I've got a jump start. So there's some give and take there, but I think time will tell. I think we got to wait and see. I don't know, the long-term effect, because we're still,
still in the middle.
This was all kind of a post-COVID thing, so we're kind of 5 years in.
But that's totally a good point. And anything in life, anything non-sports related, right? Like you see tech, the tech gurus, right, make millions and billions while in college and then drop out, and they can start and make money. For most collegiate athletes, their greatest earning power is this period of time. If they're not going to be high-level pros, or being in that position, you want to be able to capitalize. So I totally on that side. The part that I find interesting, though, like I just think about Davis, right? And you talk graduation rates and how degrees and credits count. And me coming from Fresno State, what counted and what didn't as classes from Fresno to Davis. And I obviously was an Ivy League kid, right? I'm smart, like I could get into schools. But I think, like, okay, so how does a kid go from, say, UC Davis to Pepperdine to UTEP to to like whatever, and how those classes all transferred? That's the part I find like kind of intriguing. Like, how are you actually making progress towards a degree when in some cases those schools don't even have the same degrees? I'm sure they're figuring it out, but that definitely intrigues me. Do you guys see more like, is there a byproduct of more of the generic communications degrees that people are chasing early on to kind of be able to keep the GE and the regular things moving forward? Any notable effects as a result of that from a credits perspective, school by school?
Yeah, it's a great point. I've been very fortunate in terms of where I've worked at. I've worked at Santa Clara University, Stanford, and now Cal Poly, where the academic integrity is very, very important, and they're not budging in terms of the integrity. So there's challenges for us in terms of getting transfers in, getting California JUCO transfers in. We have 8 international players. So TOEFL scores and international transcripts. And I'll say this, the compliance offices and the academic offices across the country, especially where I've worked, are doing a phenomenal job, because they're not just looking at traditional high school transcripts anymore, which for them is probably routine. They've been doing that for years. That's easy.
That's like first grade math type stuff. Yeah.
But now they're looking at international transcripts, JUCO, multiple universities, and they've got to do their job from an admission and compliance standpoint. So I tip my cap to them, because it seems like they're doing a phenomenal job in terms of working with the coaches and not just being the police and say, no, you can't do this. No, let's find a path. And it seems like all the schools across the country are working hard to find that path to help these young people, get admitted. Because you and I know a college degree is so important, and it just opens so many more doors for you. And I just hope that all these young people are still valuing that in addition to everything else that's going on, because at the end of the day, we all know it's cliche, but that ball's going to stop bouncing at some point.
At some point. That's right.
You've better hope that you've got all your ducks in a row once that happens.
Well, and when the ball stops bouncing, if you're holding on to $500,000, $750,000 because you did things right, you are set to start your business, start your career, make decisions freely that are night and day different from, the idea of, well, I just got my degree paid for. I mean, that is a fundamental change. Even $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 in your bank account. Those are massive legs up in life that kids are getting. And I think the other part that doesn't get talked about enough is the chance to play at places where you can really enjoy it and have fun and like want to play. I know for me, I was burnt on basketball by the time I finished at Davis. It just, the way that we played wasn't free flowing and wasn't my style. Learned to grind, but I wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to go play. I had offers to go play in multiple countries and overseas. Baseball, went and did that. Had so much fun. And I was like, man, this is what sports was, like really just enjoying the living daylights out of it. And I think for kids to be able to go to programs and always be, hey, I'm having fun, I'm playing, I'm actually there, certainly has a tremendous amount of value for the overall experience. Like, you only get one shot at it, and there's a lot of great talented guys who've gotten, if we look at our past, we know them. We can name guys who were with coaches in programs where they wasted away just because of a personal issue or they were backing up a more talented person, whatever it is. So I think that's a really cool part, is to give that ability to go find a spot where you can play. And like you said, the publicity and visibility. I mean, everyone connects with universities through their sports programs, but DePaul, name it, Bradley, name us, where Rob, Coach Eason is at, UIC. Like, these schools are schools that when we grew up, we were never going to see them on TV until March Madness.
Right.
And now you can access these schools and watch them play just like high school kids and develop connections. What's that like as a coach when you're doing not just, say, scouting and having access to the footage, but like exploring your professional career, realizing the accessibility of all these universities and the different paths?
Yeah, it's neat, with the ESPN app and all these other apps and Fox Sports, you can see so many games. You talked about the Horizon League and Missouri Valley Conference and all these other leagues across the country, that you really get to be a student of the game. And yes, when you get in the grind of the season, you kind of worry about your conference and your next game, but it's awesome to be able to study and watch what other coaches are doing and kind of seeing these trends. So we're always, paying attention to what's going on. And, because of the transfer portal, you don't want to tamper, but it's almost like tampering, which used to be taboo, is kind of out the window now. You have to do your job. You have to know who's out there, who these players are, because a lot of times when the portal hits, that's just a formality. These kids have already lined up where the next step is going to be, and you've got to be ready. So there's the coaching piece of learning and studying and seeing what other teams do. You look at Nebraska right now, undefeated in the country. You kind of figure out, well, they haven't been good for so long, and now what are they doing? Indiana football, what are they doing? And you get to really study and see what these programs are doing to build these strong foundations, which they have. At the same time, you got to monitor these rosters and these players, and see what's going on and try to figure out who might be available come springtime.
That's the thing. I mean, there's always these gray areas in any environment, right? And like you said, if the decision's already going to be made before the portal opens up, then the work is going to have to be done beforehand. And how you do that and walk that and navigating the NIL money. Have a good buddy of mine played at Fresno State, and he works in the with Wasserman these days, and he and I were joking, and he asked him about NIL, and he said, school called him, and first question was, surrounding NIL, and what's your budget? And he goes, that's one of the first questions I have to ask programs now is like, what's your NIL budget? And he goes, a lot of times their entire NIL budget won't get the player that they're calling about. And he goes, it's such a dramatic discrepancy when you start dealing in certain talent levels. And so there's a settling right now that's still taking place of what talent you can get. It's not just a relationship game. It's like literally how much money do you have in your budget, and can you even go after the kid? In the Big West, and with the way that works, how has recruiting changed for you guys surrounding that, knowing that like literally certain conversations can't even be had or started because there's a bid out there that's like, you better be at this number or we're not even entertaining that conversation?
Yeah, well, first off, I just got to say, I love NIL. I love where we're at in this space. I'm so happy for these college kids to be able to
Me too.
make a living, set a foundation for them in terms of financially. I also take great pride in the fact that there were people from California that really made this happen. You think about the fight that Ed O'Bannon did.
O'Bannon.
And Senator Nancy Skinner, who wrote the initial bill, and then Governor Gavin Newsom, who signed it into law. Like, California has had their hands on this.
All over this,
man. It's really neat to see. When you strip it down in terms of NIL and agents making these demands, at the end of the day, I think you're still getting the player you're always going to get.
The player you were supposed to get.
Duke's roster does not look different today than it did in 2001. They're still littered with McDonald's All-Americans. UC Davis roster is very strong, as it was, 15 years ago when Jim Les took over. Like, you're gonna get the guy you're gonna get. The hard part is the retention. Like, that's the challenging part. Is these guys play themselves up, yesterday's price is not today's price, quoting Fat Joe. That's kind of what you're dealing with. So I also think a lot of the agents are like the people in your industry. They're real estate agents. They're setting prices high. They're coming in offering low. There's so much negotiation. At the end of the day, the relationship piece is still very important. And if an agent comes to me and they lead with NIL at our level, probably not the kid we're going to get. Just the reality of it. Not to say we're not going to fight and try to get that kid, but if that's what we're leading with, probably out of our range. So we still make sure we have those development talks and style of play. This is how it's going to help you. And And then we end up having those NIL talks. But the biggest change is that when this started, talk about Nancy Skinner signing this bill in 2019, it came into practice in 2021. The top guys had agents. The top guys. Now everybody has an agent. So that piece has changed. So now everybody has representation. You can recruit a kid for 4 months and never hear of an agent, and then when it gets down to signing them, all of a sudden an agent pops up, and now the agent wants to talk about, So that part is it's fun. It's fun. I wouldn't complain about it. It's fun. It adds another layer. Yeah, I think you just got to be honest and transparent. And you can't overpromise what you don't have. If you don't have X amount of dollars in your pot, you better not promise it, because
Don't promise it.
Yeah, I've heard. We've all heard the horror stories when that happens.
Yeah, coming out. Well, and the two words that mean so much in sports, team sports in particular, right, are culture and transparency. And there's so much about them that defines success and greatness within a team and a program. What's interesting in life and moving into the business world is those words get used just as much, if not more, everywhere, but they don't carry the same meaning. And so historically, the word transparency makes me roll my eyes in business, because most people will use it and they don't mean it. It's garbage. They're the opposite of transparent. And when they talk about having great culture, you go and talk to the people that work there internally, and it's horrendous culture. And the faking it and surviving is one of those things that can happen. But in sports, you cannot fake it. If it exists, the product will be success as a team. The product will be success and connectivity. And I think that's one of the purest, most, I think, enjoyable components of being involved in sports that people miss. They talk about missing the locker room, missing the team. It's a lot of that. So when you, as a coach now, being, in the game as long as you have, what do you think are the two or three most important things for a successful college program to contain? What, all the stuff going on, what are those, like 2, 3, 4, whatever you would put those pillars as?
Yeah. Well, number one, as I mentioned, I would lead with trust. You have to work at building trust. It can't just be a word. You got to work at it. You've got to demonstrate it as a coach first, as a staff. That, to me, that's number one. Number two, I think you got to be relentless. You got to be relentless in the work, in terms of everything from on the court to the recruiting process to how you prepare for games. I think you just got to be just absolute, relentless in your approach. And the last one is you got to have fun. I mean, this is a game. This is something we grew up playing, and you got to keep that at the forefront. You got to love showing up to practice, because we're at the time now, it's January. It gets to February, and teams either want the season to end, or they want to keep going until until they are told they can't play anymore. So you got to keep that fun, and you got to get smiles on these guys' faces, and you got to find little things to keep it competitive, so that they are enjoying the process.
I love those. Those are great answers and details. I think the element of being in a season and all the inner workings of playing time and shots, and I played well, I didn't play well, we won, I did this, I did that, he did this, he did that, all those things. How many years I got left? What's going on in my life? I think the thing that coaches do that you hear consistently from players who have been with highly respected coaches is they're phenomenal at bringing perspective to their players in the entire season, right? Always helping them come back to those foundations of what, the trust, competing, teamwork, being unselfish, chasing your goals, finding the right balance, because all these things that are slammed together have a role, but too much of any one thing becomes counterproductive, right? Like everything in moderation, so to speak. Coaches that are great at giving perspective constantly seem to help people stay balanced. And I heard a story recently, just listening to some pods around Greg Popovich and how often he would come in and talk about things that were not at all basketball related and around the life and the success they had. And I think that, listening to you describe it and building trust, how hard is it to keep perspective in place for guys today when they now have this new variable of money in ways that can really change their life on top of everything else at a younger and younger age? Because, I mean, let's face it, if you were to talk to me or you at 17, 18 years old and we were talking about money, we'd either come off like complete idiots with irrational demands because we didn't know any better or somebody told us. We'd be either not great at advocating for ourselves or would be totally overwhelmed. Like there's an element of, understanding your value monetarily that's new, and this short-lived desire to still be a college kid and have fun and compete. So how is perspective different and harder, maybe different to manage today?
Yeah, I think as it's funny, man. As I get older in my career, the age gap is growing between me and the players that I coached.
Feel older, baby.
Yeah, it's quite funny actually. But I think as coaches, we got to make sure that we're not preachy and we're not coming off as telling them this is how it is, this is the way you should do things, because their childhood and formative years are much different than ours. They grew up with these devices. They grew up with the social media. They grew up kind of in a different world. So you've got to take a step back, put yourself in their shoes, and kind of hear from them and what do they value and what's important to them, and really find the connection that way. And once you've done that and you've built some investment with these young people, you've got on the court with them, now you've got some sweat equity. Now they really care in terms of what you have to say. And my thing is, I just want to serve as a river guide. As I've been in your shoes, I'm now married, older, I'm raising a family. I know what the next 5, 10, 15 years are going to look for you. So let me just serve as that river guide and kind of help you so you stay on this right path. Now you've got some money in your pocket. So now here are some ideas to, instead of just spending this money, how can we grow this money? And now it's a lot more about the mentorship is just as important as the X and O part in helping these.
Pruitt Investments is doing really well these days, right?
Yeah, exactly. Again, I didn't know these things at 17, 18, 19 years old.
Exactly.
We had a couple bucks in our pocket, who knows what we were doing, but it's connecting with
Right on
these.
the town.
Exactly. Connecting with them and then being able to serve as that river guide and kind of help them navigate this wild time they're in. Because again, we all know these 4 to 5 years are the best years of your life up until that point,
Yep.
And we want to keep it that way and try to eliminate the stress, because this generation is carrying a burden. They do have stresses that I don't think we dealt with the way they are dealing with it. So you definitely want to be able to wrap your arms around them and just continue to make sure that these are the best 4 years of their lives, because that's what college should be and needs to be.
For sure. The social media access and the way that they need to engage to build a brand and all the power that it has is incredible. It's also so very volatile to put in the hands of kids with so much to lose in one moment so quickly, and to think about all the idiotic and dumb things that we did as 17 to 22-year-olds. Hell, the dumb things I did before I got out of bed this morning. I mean, like, there's a lot there, and teaching them the maturity and helping them, I think, is a huge huge value to offer to kids. Um, Talking about your players, I mean, you've been around obviously a lot of great coaches and programs, and worked with some guys that we know together. Got your start with Cal Poly Pomona and Kaminsky over there. In the early years of your career, as you were, starting the Division II level, and then your time at Santa Clara, what was kind of the early moments and early kind of turning points where you knew, like, this is my, like, for sure going to be my lifetime, calling, like, this is my career, because you were, as we know, obviously not a single, living on your own. You were already a family man headed into a longer life, and the compensation for a coach in college basketball in the early years is, let's just say, not why people do it. So what were some of those things that really stuck out to you, and kind of were the pinpoint moments that said, I'm going to continue on this path to make this my lifelong career?
Yeah, the journey kind of started with working summer basketball camps. I remember our Davis coaches, Greg Klink and Kevin Nosik, came in and said, "Hey, do you want to work Stanford basketball camp?" This was after my freshman year, and I worked Stanford camps for 8 straight summers, which is so ironic that I ended up running that camp, a camp that I actually worked as a kid at. But just working those camps, meeting coaches around the country, working with young people, that really got that fire going. And then my first year at Cal Poly Pomona Division II, first job, my head coach, Greg Kaminsky, said, "Hey, you can recruit as much or as little as you want." And I said, "You know what? I'll pay my own dime." I drove to Las Vegas and watched a tournament and did some recruiting. Ended up help signing 2 kids that end up, the year I left, they went to the national championship game and then lost at the buzzer. And then 2 years later, they ended up winning the national championship. But 2 kids that I kind of helped bring in started on that national championship team. So it was just a cool experience of meeting kids at age 16, 17, getting to coach them at 18, 19, and kind of just seeing that journey and seeing that development. And that was so fulfilling, in that first job. And then being able to go to Santa Clara, where I was kind of removed from the floor, because I was the video coordinator for 3 years and then director of operations. So it was a lot of behind the scenes. And even the behind the scenes stuff I loved. The breaking down film, the scouting, the evaluation piece. Like, I really, really enjoyed that. So I got to wear all these different hats. And being able to wear all these different hats, I was like, you know what? I want to be a head coach. I'm going to be a head coach someday. And all these different experiences are going to help me, lead a program someday. And so it was those early stages of just that responsibility that I was given, from the camps to, doing as much as I wanted to as a grad assistant, really gave me that energy and that excitement of, hey, this is what I want to do.
All the different aspects of coaching. I think that's really important what you just touched on, which coaching in games, that's what people see, right? The coach on the sideline yelling, but really what coaching is so much of the stuff that people don't see, right? It's the relationships you build with players. It's the relationships with your staff. It's the relationships with the department and the scouting and the organization, and learning how to run an organization, period. I know for me, being able to do scouts on teams and really look at tendencies and try to find a way to take away the thing they like to do best was always something I just thoroughly enjoyed, especially when you found that thing where you're like, take this away, this is going to mess everything up, right? Being able to throw a wrinkle coaching basketball players like you guys have and are talking about, where you can adapt and do, switch defenses, play zone, play man, do things that on the fly will create havoc. I think those are fun things that coaches can do. But I think universally, whatever people get into coaching for, having an effect and passing on to the next generation the things that they learned and that inspired them tends to be the common thread, is that ability. And you mentioned the fulfillment of being able to do that at Cal Poly. How, talk about some of the guys that you've recruited, worked closely with over the years, that have gone on to have maybe some of the most success, whether it's professionally overseas, maybe flirt with the NBA, and then some that maybe just had the greatest effect on you personally, where you really, they really made an impact on you and your coaching journey.
Yeah, it's neat, man. A couple weeks ago, the Sacramento Kings took on the Denver Nuggets, and for the Sacramento Kings, we got rookie center Maxime Reynaud, who I got to coach for 3 years at Stanford, and then for the Denver Nuggets, you've got second-year shooting guard Spencer Jones. Both these guys had no Division I scholarship offers going into their senior years of high school. Maxime came to Stanford as a walk-on, 7-foot walk-on. He was not looking at any other school. He was in Paris, France, and he just wanted to go to Stanford. And it was either he was going to go pro or he was going to come to Stanford. And Spencer Jones played for a great high school in Kansas City, had won a state championship, but had no scholarship offers and ended up playing AAU ball the spring of his senior year. And we saw him at a tournament and brought him out on a visit, and he even tried out. We had him, think about this, he's starting for the Denver Nuggets, and he brought him out for a tryout. And these two guys swapped 2 weeks ago and, took a picture together. And that was just awesome, because those are guys that I've had in my living room. We've had them over for Taco Tuesday. They know our kids. So having those personal connections with guys and now seeing them live out their dreams, but also they're real student athletes. Spencer Jones, after wins, updates his LinkedIn account. He's not updating Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. He's on LinkedIn. So, you talk about just having perspective, being able to work with student athletes who have a real perspective and appreciation and humility has been really special in my career. And I get a kick out of the guys who are playing in the NBA, but there's also guys like James Keefe, who was a 4-year guy for us at Stanford, and there's a guy currently that I'm coaching named Aaron Price, who's a true Renaissance man. This is a guy that is an engineering major. He started a fraternity on campus. He sang the national anthem at a baseball game this year. He produces and raps and has music that's published on Apple Music. I mean, this guy does it all. And to be able to just be around guys like Aaron Price, just makes my job so rewarding. So it's the guys who are playing the NBA, but it's also the guys who are starting their careers professionally that I get a kick out of. And then, as years go on and they're sending us the holiday cards, and I get to see their family and their lineage and the traditions they're building. Those are the things that just, really warm my heart as a coach.
That's so cool to hear. That those are, to me, that's the thing that makes coaching worth it all. I'll the quick story on mine, when I was coaching high school at El Camino High School, and Coach Klink called to ask me if I would be interested in the assistant job to replace Gus Arginal. Certainly was very interested, trying to figure out how I was going to move my wife and our couple-week-old baby up there, and work for that money was its own adjustment. But one of my, we went on a 2-year run to the NCAA tournament, won the CC2A title, and that was all the foundation laid by Gus and Coach Klink. But what sticks out for me, much like yours, was I remember going into the gym and watching Amir Caraway. And when I got there, Amir was not on the radar as a guy they were planning on playing. They had some other guys in. They had, I'd say to a degree, they did not think he had at that point really lived up to their hopes. And as positive as Clink and Gus and Chris Cobb were, there was a certain like what they had seen. And I remember walking into the gym and seeing a kid with a tremendous amount of ability and watching him work, and saw a lot of myself in him. And we started working together, and I watched him be a sponge and want to work on everything, and just being a little bit goofy, and how having a chance of going, okay, like you're my guy, like you and I are in the gym, you're essentially kind of like my position at the D2 level. Let's get in the gym. And so he and I start working, and he starts to absorb it. And I remember 2 days in being able to go into the staff and telling Clink, he's going to be our best or second best player this year. And them kind of going like, you're crazy. Like, we've got Jay, we've got all these guys. I'm like, you don't understand. He doesn't miss now that we're, he gets his feet underneath him. He's on balance. So we worked that whole year, and he ends up having a breakout season, all conference, goes on to have a great pro career. And whatever he and I talk, he looks back and he'll say I had a huge effect on his career. But for me, the reward and the fulfillment of getting to give to someone what I received from John Welch and others was like the thing that drew me to coaching in the first place. Was I got to give that knowledge to someone who wanted it and to absorb it. And when I listened to you talk about some of your stories, talk about the skill development stuff and the chance to connect with a guy, see that ability, and know that really, where you mentioned earlier, you build the rapport with the sweat equity in the gym, right? The time spent where you're there helping them get better, and you're becoming, the key, kind of building block in their eventual career progression, and how that relationship takes place. Talk about a few of those guys and those experiences.
Yeah, it's really neat because a lot of guys, sometimes their individual success has to take a back seat to the team success. And a couple guys in particular, when I was at Santa Clara, Evan Wardlow was a player from Los Angeles, went to El Camino High School, and he came to us and battled some injuries early on. And his first couple years, his career never really took off. And he was a guy that we just be in the gym, and we would just repetition after repetition, working on the shooting, working on the ball handling. And he eventually, played a little bit, and then ended up finishing his career at Cal State East Bay. You speak about with Gus Argenal.
Yeah.
He has been a 10-year pro playing overseas. And that part was cool, that didn't have the greatest experience in college because of the injury piece and just really not finding his way, but continuing to develop that love for the game. And no matter what happened, those ups and downs, that love for the game never left him. And he was able to refine it. And now he's playing, overseas in a 10-year career. One of the most successful guys that I've worked with who's playing overseas is another kid from Santa Clara, Ray Cowles. Ray Cowles from Hopkins High in Minnesota. And he had a good career at Santa Clara. And he's now on maybe almost his 12th year playing professional overseas. And he's not slowing down anytime soon. And again, this is the guy that came in high school as a decent shooter, but we'd be in the gym, myself and other assistants, and we're just working on that shot, getting that confidence up. And it's amazing what the repetition can do for a young person's confidence. And it doesn't matter if you come into college as a great shooter, average shooter, you have to put in the work. And, it's really neat seeing these kids who have been pros for 10 years, 12 years, and then looking back to them, what was their process? What did they do? And that's the part that's really neat for me now to share with other guys is, hey, I might not have all the answers. I wasn't this great, amazing basketball player, but I've seen what it takes. I've seen the process. and understand you might not be where you
That's
want
right.
to be now at age 19, but if you put in the work, you're going to get there. And there's no substitute for that. And it's just neat, 20 years now in the business, and be able to look back and really pinpoint those guys that just had that love and just always wanted more, always seeked more. And those two guys from Santa Clara really stand out.
That's awesome stories, and the reminder that you're always either getting better or getting past, right? Like if you're in the gym and you're putting in the work, you're getting better than somebody else. And if you're not, someone's getting better than you. And the guys that, jump out, like, Jay Flores, who's coaching over at Montana. I mean, a sack guy, Jesuit. I mean, his athletic and talent ability, for him to be an MVP in the CC2A was a total testament to his work ethic in the gym, his competitiveness, and his knowledge of the game, and being in the right situation. Um, People like that are inspiring as coaches, because you're thinking about, if I could get every guy who had talent at that level or greater to compete and work at that level, you start to see the potential in guys that don't even understand where their ceiling really is. And I think that's the cool part of coaching, where you're able to tell a kid their ceiling is much higher than they actually, are able to envision for themselves in some cases. Um, so kind of, I know we've got about 10 minutes or so here. I would love to, pulling kind of back, the Big West has so much interconnectivity. You touched on it a second ago, and I find it wild when I look through and I'm thinking about guests and different people that I want to bring in. It's almost like the Big West show at this point. We can put together, but seeing Andy Newman over at Northridge now, and that full circle back is crazy. Obviously, Gus Arginal heading up the Riverside Highlanders.
Well, I'll tell you this, Dedrick Taylor is the first coach that recruited me. So Dedrick Taylor, who's also a UC Davis graduate, also
Yep.
from the hometown of Pomona, and he was an assistant at Davis when I was in high school at Upland High, and he was the first coach that called and recruited me. And he was a big reason why I went to UC Davis. So it's neat now to full circle to now to be able to compete against this team and just see the unbelievable success that he's had. Andy Newman's doing a phenomenal job at Northridge. His kids play so hard. Jim Less is doing a great job at UC Davis. Russell Turner at Irvine. I mean, the coaches in this conference are as good as any conference I've ever worked in. They're great evaluators of talent. And then they've got their system, and their kids play extremely hard. That's why I think there's so much parity right now in the Big West Conference. I mean, you've got last year UC San Diego was elite. I mean, they were one of the best teams in the Big West in the last few years. They won 30 plus games. But
who's coaching? Who's the head coach down there now?
God, I've drawn a blank. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Eric Olin was it
Eric Olin left. Eric Olin left for New Mexico, but his longtime assistant, right. Current head coach. But Eric did a great job. But the league right now, I mean, you've got, I think, Hawaii with 2 losses, Irvine with 1 loss, but everybody else is kind of jumbled in there with 3-4 losses. So I think as we get closer to February and as we get closer to March, man, it's going to be super exciting here in the Big West.
That's fantastic. Talk about the community in coaching, right? And like the network and the building of your career and how that evolves. I mean, people don't understand from the outside what it takes to essentially make it a career, climb the ranks, maintain not only a position and a role, but to be the guy that's thought of to get opportunities as the coaching wheel changes. And some of the network decisions that we make in life, spread out. Obviously, I mentioned, Rob Eson, one of our teammates, now that the head coach at UC Chicago, Illinois, and you guys work together at Stanford. There are definitely guys scattered throughout the country. Who are some of the the coaches throughout the years that you've worked with and for that you stay in touch with, and how does that kind of rank in terms of the priority of the job and maintaining that understanding that a lot of your next opportunity or your opportunity to get your first head coaching job, which you are, grinding towards and are going to do a great job when that opportunity comes. What's that part of the job like for you?
Yeah, your coaching tree is very important. You always want to align yourself with good people, which I've been very fortunate to do. The assistants that I've worked with, man, are outstanding. I look at Dustin Kearns right now and Sam Scholl. These are two guys I worked with at Santa Clara. Dustin's the head coach at Appalachian State. Sam was the head coach at University of San Diego. He's now up as an assistant at Montana State. And he talked about, Robert Eson and guys like Brandon Dunson, who's an assistant coach at BYU. Just been really fortunate to be able to work with some really, really great assistant coaches, along with the head coaches that I work with. And right now it's super exciting because now, I had the coaching tree that from my times at Pomona and Santa Clara and Stanford, and now I get to expand with the Mike DeGeorge coaching tree and all the places he's been, and really get to connect with those guys. At the Final Four last year, I got to meet a lot of the guys at his coaching tree, which is neat because in this industry, the power of who is so important in terms of who and not just who but who knows you, who can vouch for you. And the number one key is to do a great job in the job you're in. So many people want to search for the next job or try to get a leg up here and there. Do your job where you're currently at. Be where your feet are, and opportunities will come. And so that's the biggest thing is whoever I've worked for, I just try to put my head down and grind and do a great job. And hopefully we win and opportunities come. But yeah, the power of who's is very important, and just continue to strengthen and grow those relationships.
That's a great message all the way around, I think, in life, right? No matter where you are, no matter what you're aspiring to be and where you are in the journey of your ultimate goal, you can't get there without excelling in your current environment. And again, perspective, being able to teach kids that lesson, whatever it is that's happening right now, excel at it. Like, be the best at whatever it is you're currently doing. That's setting a habit, building a foundation, and it gets noticed. It all connects. And relationships matter, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Be someone who values people and values relationships, because you really don't know who and what and how that's all going to connect. That's such great insight, and exciting to see. You guys are coming to town pretty soon, right? I think coming up north.
Yeah, we'll be up there. Yeah, we'll be up at Davis here in a couple weeks. Should be fun. It's our last time coming to Davis because UC Davis is moving to the Mountain West Conference, which as an alum is super exciting to see those new challenges. But yeah, it'll be our last time at the old Rec Hall, or the Pavilion as they call it now.
The Pavilion, as they call it. That you'll have to. I'm sure you'll have a bunch of tickets to come down, but I definitely want to bring the kids up and come watch the game, man.
Really fun, man. We got you.
Yep, I love it. Well, hey, man, I really, really appreciate you making the time. It's great to connect. Congratulations on not only continuing to have another successful season and everything you guys are doing at Cal Poly, but on your journey, and also being, one of our channel and social media's favorites. Everybody seems to like what you have to say more than me, which is totally expected, since most of the stuff that comes out of my mouth is idiotic. But really appreciate you making time for us today, bud.
Thanks for having me, man, and best of luck. Happy New Year, and look forward to seeing you up at Davis.
Yes, sir. Love it.